Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this webinar brought to you by Bolide Technology, going over essential IP and HD CCTV accessories. I'm Stephen Jonathan Frias. I'll be your moderator today, going over any questions you might have. Here with me is Ken Miguel, our Inside Sales Manager. How you doing, Ken?
I'm doing good, Stephen. Again, thank you, everybody, for joining us on today's webinar.
Excellent. Also here with us is Mike Lugo. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great, Stephen. Thank you for asking.
He is our technical support engineer. And we'll be going over, in this webinar, network camera and IP accessories. We're going to be going over our PoE switch, why it is so important, why is it a PoE Plus switch, how it works, and all the functions and features of that product. We'll also be going over our PoE injector, our Ethernet over power over Coax solution. We're going over the features and functions of that, why it's so important, how to work it, and how you can utilize it. We're also going over our HD over Coax accessories, our baluns, how they work, how to work them. We're also going over our video and power accessories. These are essentials that you may need in special occasions, but like our coax converters, our VGA over UTP converters, and our step-down power from 24-volt to 12-volt converter as well. We'll be going over questions over every one of these sections, and at the end we'll go ahead and wrap it up to answer any questions over the overall webinar. But please feel free to type in anything as we go along. And at this point, I will go ahead and throw this over to Ken.
Thank you, Julie, and thank you for the introduction. And again, thank you, everybody, for joining us on today's webinar. For any questions, feel free to type in the chat box, and we'll answer them throughout the webinar. So let's get right into it. So in designing a CCTV system, you have your required hardware. That's your camera, your recorder, which could be a DVR, NVR, or a server. Of course, you need your power for the cameras and your recorder, and you need your monitor so you see what's going on. But there are situations where the basic required hardware for CCTV just does not tie together properly. They don't connect with each other, or they just don't work as well as you'd want them to work. And that's where these accessories come in to help and solve the problems. Let's start with our network camera and IP accessories. So usually for IP cameras, they're set up in pretty much two ways. One is a smaller scale system. Smaller systems usually require the cameras and a recorder, usually a 4, an 8, or a 16 channel NVR. And these NVRs typically have built-in PoE, and they're pretty much plug and play, simple to use, fast. Another setup will be for larger scale systems. In this case, you can't use these smaller NVRs. You will need to provide a sufficient server solution that has enough horsepower in the hardware and software side for you to run your cameras. And to tie all this together, you would need a good quality switch for your system. And we have exactly this solution. So introducing our BE8216E-PoE switch.
So let me start off by saying our switch is a layer 2 switch, which means that it's hardware based. It doesn't go off the connection of just anything plugged into it. It goes off the actual NIC card attached to the device. It also has lower latency. We have 20 ports with 16 PoE plus ports, meaning you can dedicate the full 16 PoE ports to your cameras and not have to worry about using one to connect to the network or another PC.
So let's talk about why this PoE switch is good and why is it better than other PoE switches in the market.
And that's a great question because, like I said before, we have the 4 extra uplink ports. Not only are they just regular uplink ports, 2 of them are fiber uplink ports that get you a gig of speed, much longer runs, and 2 Ethernet ports. Cat5, Cat6 is also a gig. So a regular PoE switch, you're not going to get these functions. On top of that, we have a graphic user interface and a console port on our switch.
So this has enough features and functions to not be used only for a CCTV system, but also for an overall home automation system, as well as power PTZ cameras with a stronger watts, a higher amount of watts that it provides to every port.
Correct. And in home automation, also a lot of people want to connect their lights with the phone now. Like you said, home automation, alarms, any kind of device that can be connected and controlled through the internet. Our PoE switch will help with that.
So let's compare it with a leading competitor's PoE switch. What's the difference?
And you can see here with a normal PoE switch, you get 16 PoE ports. That's it. With ours, you get the 16 PoE plus. Plus, you get 2 uplink Ethernet ports plus 2 fiber uplink ports. Like I said, it's a layer 2 managed switch, and we do have a graphic user interface to help you out with doing changes in settings.
So PoE plus.
So I'm pretty sure everybody's heard of IEEE, which stands for the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers. IEEE 802.3 AF refers to a standard PoE 15 watts of power. The new standard now is 802.3 AT, which is PoE plus, and you're going to get 25 watts of power per channel out of your PoE.
Now let's look at the profile of this 20-port PoE switch. Mike?
Okay, so I'm going to go over these a little more in depth. But here's a quick overview. Like I said, the 16-port PoE plus channels. There's the 2 Ethernet ports, the 2 fiber ports, the console port, and a reset button in case your switch should go to get frozen. You're able to do that one button. I have to pull the power out.
Okay, so let's talk about these outputs. Number 1 is your fiber uplink. Now, does this mean, and we get asked this question a lot, does this mean that you can use fiber optic backbone for your CCTV system?
That's exactly what it means. And so with a fiber optic backbone, you're able to do longer runs that you would with the Cat 5 or Cat 6. You can virtually go as far as you want with a fiber run. It is a gig, so you get a lot faster speeds, and faster communication means a more efficient network. So it's a major...
That's a huge feature.
Yes. And so you get 2 Ethernet ports. Also, you can get up to a gig out of them. What's the difference? Why should I go with fiber instead of Ethernet? Because Cat 6 is limited to your basic Ethernet limitations. So once again, you do get the faster communication, more efficient network, and you don't have to worry about using any of those ports to connect to your network.
So these 2 Ethernet uplink ports saves you the PoE ports for your cameras, as well as allow you to have faster upload speeds. And this is helpful as far as streaming video for your mobile phone apps, as well as remote viewing for your IP cameras.
Correct.
So let's go over the GUI and how to access the menus of this PoE switch.
Right, as you can see here, you can use any browser you want, Internet Explorer, Chrome. You simply type in the default IP address, and you'll get a prompt for your username and password, which by default is admin. And once you enter the GUI, you'll see many different menus across the top. The first one we'll go over is your PoE switch basic info, device name, address, time, stuff like that. So VLANs, this is a very important function of this layer 2 switch. For those who don't know what VLAN is, it's a virtual local area connection, which means you can create smaller networks within your actual physical network. If you want to separate your cameras from your actual PC network, if you have other things running like home automation, you want to separate those IPs and have them all running separately, not interfering with each other, you're able to do that with the VLAN function. Network management. Basic network management, SNMP, is a standard across all internet switch protocol, and this allows you to change port forwarding, and untagged list will give you what is being port forwarded and what's not port forwarded. A lot of switches won't let you port forward. You have to have an actual router. This will allow you to do.
So this helps you deal with multiple devices in your network.
Correct. So port settings. Port settings here will give you stats on your PoE switch, how much power that it's actually pulling, how much you want to give, flow control. Lets you basically control every port on the switch to totally customize your network.
And this is very helpful. For example, you have a camera system, you have some 2 megapixel cameras, and you have some 5 megapixel or 4 megapixel cameras. For example, your system bogs down. This is where you'll find out which channels are eating more bandwidth, and then you can go ahead and do your settings within the camera settings to either lower your resolution, your frames, or the transmission rate, just to get your network going smoother.
Correct. So PoE settings. This is going to allow you to control how much power is going to each device. Not all devices need a standard 12 watt, 15 watt power consumption. Like I said, it's a PoE plus, so we actually allow the device to take 25 watts. PTZs, home automation, lighting, all that stuff needs different wattage. You can control the actual amount of power going to the device from here. So very important.
And again, the PoE Plus not only powers CCTV cameras, like Mike said, home automation, even external devices, you have enough power to power all these devices.
So system management, basic network information, static or dynamic IPs. I'm pretty sure most of you are familiar with having to deal with this type of stuff already. You can have, if you have a router attached to it, you will grab it dynamically from the router. If not, you can set it statically to not change or have a more customized, So LACP trunk setting, this is very important. This is going to allow you to have multiple ports combined into one for better transmission. If you have all your lighting on one port, this will control all the lighting with one port, not having individual ports to control those lighting. Some of you are familiar with port forwarding on the cameras. They have to have different ports in order to access each camera. You can combine ports and access multiple devices with just one port because of this function. So PoE statistics. This is going to tell you everything that's gone on since something has been plugged in. Air packets, broadcast packets, loss of packets, speed, and port settings you can control from here. So this is very important when you're monitoring your PoE and your network. Like Ken said earlier, you want to see what's bogging down your network. This is going to tell you everything you need to know. Port security lock. This is going to allow you to lock down your VLANs and your MAC addresses. So you don't have to worry about any kind of intrusion in your network. Most of you have virus protection and stuff like that. This will further protect your network and your ports from any kind of intrusion.
So those are the menus and the GUI of this PoE switch. For any questions, feel free to ask us by email, or you can ask right now.
Before we go on to the next section, please type in any questions you have. We'll give you a second to process, and then we'll move forward.
And we'll be answering your question periodically throughout the webinar. So whenever you think of a question, just feel free to type it in, and we'll get to them shortly. So let's move on to the next section, which is the PoE injector / ePOC converter. So these accessories come in a couple of situations. One, maybe you don't have enough PoE range to power the camera distance that you've ran. Another is maybe you need to design an IP camera system, but you already have existing coaxial cable infrastructure at the job site. Do you pull all the cables and rerun UTP wire, or can you use your existing infrastructure? The answer to both these questions is yes, you can, using this accessory. So typically in the market, PoE injectors or PoE extenders and Ethernet over coax converters are sold as two different products. And if you have so many channels, this can get really expensive. What we've done here at Bolide is we actually put the main functions of these two devices and put them into one device. And that's our EPOC converter, PoE injector. Let's go over the specifications of this accessory.
Okay, so you can see here that, like we said, it's an injector and power over coax. The power is supplied through a PoE or through the actual PoE injector. You can have a 48 volt adapter plugged into it. Only consumes 2 watts of power. If you're using the coax, you can go up to 500 meters, and the Ethernet side is 400 meters, so it's significantly further than you would a normal run. Also, the power output is that of the DC power plugged into it. It's not going to take any more than that, and that's about it.
And here is a profile of the PoE injector function of this unit.
You can see there's an Ethernet port on each side, and you can't see in this picture, but on the other side there is another BNC port for the EPOC. And of course your 48 volt DC adapter.
So the other function of this unit is Ethernet over coax converter. And here shows you the basic setup of using this accessory. As you can see on this diagram, we are using coax cable to connect an IP camera to the NVR.
So the coax cable can be up to 1,500 feet, and there is no power on this. There's no power required. Since you're using a PoE already on the NVR, you simply just plug the coax in the middle, and it'll provide power over the coax to the camera. This is pretty cool how this works.
So you buy these in pairs. One goes to your camera end and one goes to your NVR or recorder end, right?
Correct.
Again, here's a profile of the same converters. And here's a setup for a larger network of converters.
Yeah, you can see here the larger network, meaning the NVR and the PoE are separate. The first picture showed our NVR and PoE. This is a separate PoE, and it shows multiple devices on the PoE switch with both the Cat5 in the middle and the coax in the middle. As we said, our coax and power of Ethernet act as both. So you get a 2-in-1 device, and it shows how they both work to a larger network.
So that completes this section of our webinar regarding PoE injector and Ethernet over coax converters. Again, if you're installing a new IP camera system, you can use existing coax cable infrastructure. You can extend your PoE range using this particular accessory.
Please feel free to type in any questions at this point. We just covered our Ethernet over coax solution, as well as our PoE classic switch, so please feel free to type in questions now.
So we completed our network, our IP camera accessories. Now let's move on to our HD over coax accessories. So I mentioned a situation where you have existing coax cable and you want to use it for an IP camera system. Now let's look at the opposite side of this. What if you need to install a brand new HD over coax system, but you have existing UTP cable infrastructure at the job site? Do you pull all your Cat5e or Cat6 cables and rerun it with coax cables? Or can you use it for your new system? The answer is yes, you can use it for your new system. And how do we solve this problem? Using our hybrid video baluns. So this is a hybrid passive balun. It works with HD TBI, HD CBI. It works with, of course, AHD, which is the platform that our Angelo HDs are running on. as well as traditional analog cameras. There's no power required. It's got a push and terminal block for your wires. Signal transmission for 720p, you're looking at a maximum of 300 meters, 1,500 feet. For 1080p, you're looking at a maximum of 250 meters. In addition, this has a built-in surge protection as well as interference rejection.
Oh, and before we go into hybrid passive baluns, it looks like we had a question out here from Roger Wilkins. He asked Mike, do you have to do any programming to the switches initially?
No, you don't have to do any programming to the switches initially. All these functions are for you to take advantage of if you want to, but it's also a great plug-and-play switch. You don't need to do any configurations if you don't want to, but they are there for your option.
Also, our iPack 2.5 software has an auto sniff function where you plug in this PoE switch onto your server, you plug your cameras to the switch, and the software automatically detects your camera.
But the beauty of the PoE switch is the fact that if you have a 5 megapixel and a 2 megapixel camera on your network, and you can adjust to say, maybe pick some bandwidth from the 2 and give it to the 5, you can do that.
All right, so a good question. I guess guys, feel free to ask some questions. That's a great question. Let's going back to this. So let's look at the profile of this hybrid passive balun. Mike?
This is a very simple setup. You have your BNC cables connect to the front and your UTP cable connected to the back. As considered here, it's a push button terminal. There's 2 little buttons you can't really see in the picture. You click them, opens up the little teeth, insert your wire, release, and that's it.
So in essence, if you use a traditional analog balun, it's the same usage, same way to use it, but it will do HD, 1080p, and 720p. Now, if you need a balun that has power, audio, data, all in one, we also have our hybrid video and power baluns.
So these are great because there's not too many baluns out there that actually have a data audio cable on it. These do. You can also transmit, of course, the power through it. It has an RJ45 connector in the back rather than just the UTP cable and push button terminal. You can plug in the full Ethernet into the back where it runs, and everything runs through those 4 pairs.
So here's a profile of this all-in-one passive balun. And here's a diagram that shows how to set it up. As you can see here, we're using Ethernet cable for this particular setup.
You can also see the audio data, the power cable, and the BNC. The audio data can also be for PTZ, or RS485. You can easily run through that cable and have no problems with the transmission.
Okay, so at this time we've covered all the sections. Is there any questions so far of what we've gone over? Please feel free to type them.
On the balun.
On the baluns.
If not, then let's move on to the next section, which is our video and power accessories. So we've done IP, we've done HD over coax, we've done analog, but there are special cases where you need extra hardware to connect video or provide sufficient and correct power to your cameras. And we'll go over a few of these accessories. First is our 16-channel and single-channel coaxial converter. So what this accessory does is it pretty much converts Pelco C coaxial protocol cameras to Pelco D, which allows them to connect to modern-day DVRs and keyboard controllers via RS485. So this is very useful. There was a time where the Spectras were really popular. Data and video ran through the same coax cables, but there were issues with range and distance, and the whole industry kind of stepped away from that protocol. And nowadays, it's pretty much everything's Pelco D. So what do? Do you replace those cameras with a PTZ that does Pelco D and spend all that money? No, you don't. You can use those cameras, hook them up to this coaxiatron converter, and they come out with Pelco D protocol, among others, and use them to connect to a modern day DVR and controller. So Mike, let's go over the specifications of this coaxiatron converter.
So very, very simple specifications. This thing is pretty much plug and play aside from a couple of dip switches that you have to change, but it is RS485 and RS422 to interface. As you can see, the baud rates are pretty standard across the board, and it does convert the coaxial to regular video transmission. And the distance is about 300 meters that you can get out of it.
So this is a 16 channel coaxial converter. It does need a 12 volt DC power supply. And here's a profile of the output in the back of this unit.
So as you can see, a LAN port here, and I'm going to bring this up because we get a lot of questions about it. The LAN port is for our use only. It does not connect through the network because it has a LAN port. That's for us to connect and make any changes or upgrades to the device that we might need. So that's internal use only. The COM port is your main interface that we're using for this, for all 16 channels. And the dip switches, of course, to control the baud rate, the Pelco protocol, and the PTZ address. And you can see we have 16 inputs and 16 outputs. You put your input in, output goes to the camera. It's very plug and play, very simple.
And this unit is also rack mountable?
Yes, it is rack mountable.
So instead of replacing 16 PTZs, you have 16 inputs here. You can use them for 16 cameras. Go a long way. So a basic setup. Now, Mike, let's go
yeah, so as I said before, it's very plug and play. Your DVR will directly plug into the port corresponding to it on the coaxial converter, and that will go to the Pelco PTZ, and that's it. It's plug and play. Like I said, aside from the addresses you have to assign to the cameras, you're ready to go.
Like I mentioned, this also comes in a single channel unit, and here is a profile of the outputs.
Yes, so the single channel is a little slightly different. You don't use a COM port, you use a RS485, and you can see A, B, C, and D. Very simple. You have your transmission light, video in, video out, plug and play, 9-volt adapter. So here's your dip switches for the address, 1 through 8, whatever the address might be of your PTZ. Even though it's only one, you still need to assign it an address. Protocol, whether that be Pelco C, Pelco D, and the baud rate corresponding to the PTZ.
And the reason for the dip switch is that you can actually switch your protocol from Pelco coaxiatron to a different protocol such as Panasonic, Pelco P, Calotel, among many others. And there's different dip switch settings for every protocol. But nowadays, pretty much, Pelco D is pretty standard across the board, right?
Yeah.
So here's a basic setup for this coaxiatron converter.
You can see it's pretty simple, just like the 16 channel. Goes into the DVR, comes out to the camera. That's it, pretty plug and play.
Okay, another accessory that we want to cover is our VGA over Ethernet converter. So long VGA cables are pretty costly, and you might lose quality over long distances. You can use this accessory to transmit your VGA signal through Cat5e or Cat6. So if you have a monitor that's pretty far away and you have existing UTP, this solves your problem.
This is also pretty important in today's DVRs. A lot of them are going away from the BNC out. You either have HDMI or VGA on the back of your DVR. That's it. How do you get that extra monitor across the room or to the other side of a building. You used to do it with the BNC. You can't do that now. So this comes in handy very much when we want to have 100 meters, 150 meters away another monitor.
So these converters are sold in pairs. One goes to your DVR end, and one end goes to your monitor. So here's a profile of the pairs.
So you can see each pair has one VGA and one Ethernet. Of course, one's in, one's out. Again, just like all of their stuff, it's plug and play. It does have an adjustment switch for different lengths. Yeah, that's it.
And here's a basic setup.
So here's a basic setup with Ethernet. Like I said, 150 meters to 500 feet. You can go with this, and it replaces the BNC out on the older DVR.
So it's great for spot monitors.
Spot monitors.
So that covers our VGA over UTP converter. Next, you know what if you run into a situation where you would need to step down your power from 24 volt AC to 12 volt DC. Now this is your accessory. It's our 24 volt to 12 volt DC converter. Specifications, Mike?
Sure. So it's got the quick terminals. You just the quick screw, plug it right in, 1.5 amp. Like Ken said, it's stepped down from 24 to 12. It's perfect if you have a 24 volt box and you have 8 ports and you don't want to just put 112. You can get this, add it, and you don't have to worry about switching out power boxes for one panel.
Yeah. For example, like you mentioned, there's a 24 volt power box and you have 15 dual voltage cameras, and you want to replace one with a 12 volt DC camera. You can by using this converter. Here's a profile of this converter.
So you see the 12 volt positive, 12 volt negative. As you know, 24 volt doesn't really matter which it is because it's going to connect either way. So there's the 24 volt.
So here's a basic setup like we described.
And you can see the 24 volt power box goes into the 24 to 12 step down into the 12 volt camera, and you have no problems with blowing out your camera just because you have the 24 volt box.
Okay. So that covers this section as well as the accessories that we wanted to discuss on today's webinar. We covered network camera accessories, IP camera accessories, HD over coax accessories, video and power accessories. And again, like we mentioned, these accessories are important because sometimes this is what you need to really tie a system together and make sure that everything connects right and that all your hardware is working properly.
So at this point, we'll open the floor to questions. Looks like we have one already. Looks like Mr. Wilkins asked, do they make the switch for HDMI as well? And Mike, is there an instance where you would need an HDMI output or input on the switch?
No, because it's a network device. Switches normally don't have any kind of output, video output on them. It's usually just network output or network input, whatever. Yeah, switches don't normally have video connectors.
So for everybody who joined us, this webinar was recorded and will be available shortly on Bolide North America YouTube channel. And thank you everybody again for joining us for today's webinar.
And we'll go ahead and wrap this up. If there's any other additional questions, please feel free to email us or contact us. And like Ken said, we'll put this on our YouTube channel. And thank you so much, everyone, for joining us.
Floor still open for questions.
All right. Thank you again for joining us, everybody. This will be on our YouTube page. And you have a great afternoon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.